George Gershwin. Rhapsody in Blue, the piano rolls. This is Mazzy's mix number 23, where I show a variety of new releases, a couple of reissues, and a small segment on one band I quite like, Long Ago Band. I love the symphonic full version of this amazing piece of American classic pop music that was used at the beginning of Woody Allen's Manhattan. Just a beautiful piece of music. I don't play piano, and those of you who do play piano can tell I don't play piano. But I just want a little introduction before we get into showing records, because I like, I get some people lately complaining about the long-winded introductions, but hey, I try to make them a little entertaining, a little light humor. Some of you people take this shit too seriously, so just enjoy the music, have fun, smile a little bit, and enjoy the beautiful hand job of George Gershwin. Without further ado, let's show some records. So before we jump into the new releases, I just, this past weekend, on the anniversary, the 53rd anniversary of the Beatles Rooftop final performance at Apple Records, which was the finale on the Get Back documentary that Peter Jackson compiled from the Michael Lindsay Hogg footage of Let It Be. Fabulous documentary. It's coming out on video. And there was a one-day IMAX presentation of it. And the audio was remixed especially by Giles Martin for IMAX theaters. And it was recut somewhat to do multi-camera inclusion, very much like if you saw Woodstock, where they have some of the performance multi-camera. And it was an amazing sounding selection. They gave away this poster at the end, and Laird and VIP, whatever, dude, for your $25. It was almost a full house up here in Bellevue, just across the Lake, Washington from Seattle. And it sounded amazing, and it sounded really good. It had sort of the intro from the documentary, if you saw it on Disney Plus, and it's coming out on Blu-ray in February. If you saw that, you know the whole introduction leading up to the final concert, from them in Liverpool to coming to America, to the studio years and beyond. So I just thought it was really well done. There was a 30-minute intro Q&A with Peter Jackson live from New Zealand. They broadcasted to, I think it was like 75 or 80 IMAX theaters around the world, or at least in the UK and the States. Really incredible sound and just a dynamic footage. And if you've seen the Get Back special documentary, it's very similar to that, but even more so. And we'll probably never ever get to see it again on IMAX. And that multi-screen section probably won't work as well on the small screen, even if you have a large television set. I mean, it'll be okay, but seeing it there was really a treat. So there you go. The Beatles, Get Back, the Rooftop concert. I'm not a Beatles channel. So, new releases. A lot of stuff in January that I've gotten. I think all these are, except for one, are new records, not reissues. Maybe. Oh, one reissue or two reissues. First, I want to start with Queens of the Summer Hotel. I'm a big fan of Amy Mann, and this is a project by Amy Mann, produced by Paul Bryan, who plays on it and sings. And this is sort of for an unproduced Broadway musical. It is so good. If you like Amy Mann, if you're not an Amy Mann fan, it's not going to change your mind, but it's singer-songwriter style, very small group, classical string quartet as behind a lot of the numbers, including a small combo with some woodwinds as well. Really beautiful. Brian sings some harmonies, and the arrangements are very much, in some cases, carnival-like, but that's just in some of the arrangements. It reminds me of some of the mid-period Fiona Apple arrangements as well. Different style completely, but Queen of the Summer Hotel, I really highly recommend this if you're a singer-songwriter, and if you like Amy Mann, this is a fabulous album. We haven't had a new album from her in a long time, and her records sound good. She releases them, I believe, on our own label here, Super Ego Records, which is a beautiful cover too. So this is a highly recommended. These first two, even though we're just at the end of January, finished January up, are amongst my two favorite albums of the year so far. The second is this album. Bill Callahan and Bonnie Prince, Billy Will Oldham, that's his synonym, other name. This is 2 LPs of covers, and not the typical covers we all know. A lot of these covers, some of us might not even recognize. Opens up with Blackness of the Night, which is, to me, my favorite song on the album. It's a great opening. If you don't know Bill Callahan, he used to put records out under the moniker Smog. His last record made my top records of last year, I believe. 2021 or 2020, both. Fantastic baritone voice. There is a folk sensibility to some of this, a folk country sensibility. Some of it is very psychedelic. What's interesting about this, they took a lot of the artists from Drag City Records and they play with on this album. In a way, they were influenced by the 1970s Outlaw record, and those records where Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson, Jesse Coulter, Tom Paul Glaser would play, have this comp album, and they wouldn't necessarily all play on every cut. And they took artists from Drag City, from the label, various bands and various artists to play on this record. The booklet alone, and it goes through every song, very elaborate liner notes and interviews with the various artists who contribute to this set. And some of this, there's a couple of the tunes that are in a dirgy psychedelic way that are really heavy, almost on the avant-garde side of it, but then it comes back to an acoustic minimal sound. And again, it's among my favorites of the year so far. We've only had a month into it. And it's Bill Callahan and Bonnie Prince Billy, along with other artists from the Drag City Records label. And it's called Blind Date Party on Drag City Records. Love this. The continuing series of the Jukebox Series. Lowell's Jukebox Series and Concert Series is volume number 6, and this is where Lucinda Williams, Are You Cordially Invited, a tribute to the Rolling Stones. And again, the garbled mouth, marble mouth sound of Lucinda Williams always gets to me, and I just love her arrangements, and there's a certain slop, a sexiness to her music. She's a street fighting man. The Last Time, Get Off My Cloud, Painted Black, You Gotta Move, Time Waits for No One. 2 records on here, ending up with You Can't Always Get What You Want. And I love this series. I think I have 4 of the 6 releases, and this is the latest one. Really great. Lucinda Williams, Lou's Jukebox, Rolling Stones covers. Really great. Now, this is my favorite PJ Harvey album. This is a reissue. The whole series continues. I'm not getting all the PJ Harvey albums, but this is Let England Shake. It's a modern record. It's what year this came out? 2010, so it's 12 years old. There's an album that goes along with it of the demo version that hasn't arrived yet. I did order that. For some reason, they ship separately, so I haven't heard that one yet. But love PJ Harvey, love this record, Let England Shakes. To me, a really great artist, and I love PJ Harvey. I love everything she does. I'm not quite sure why I haven't got all the vinyl versions. I have most of the stuff on CD, but I love this one. For some reason, this one just hit a soft spot for me, and love it. Let England Shake. This is an album that came out in 2021, and I just picked it up, and it's the Chills Scatterbrain, the Australian band. I like a pop song they did in the, I think it was the early 90s. Really great song. I saw them on their reunion tour a couple years ago. They kind of got back together and did some touring, but the Chills from Australia, in a way, a little power pop sounding record, and really good, called Scatterbrain. Love it too. Next has got to be the cover art package of the year by Mark Oliver Everett, also known as E, also known as Eels. The Eels, or just Eels. I think he likes just Eels there. This is Extreme Witchcraft. He puts out a lot of records. Every year he's got an album out. And this is the extended box set, which has the double album, has CDs, has a lot of extra artwork, has a Ouija board. You don't need all this stuff. I am a big fan of this gentleman. Very accessible, catchy music, folky, psychedelic in a way. He does some pop arrangements, a lot of pop, but also very artsy. Yet so commercial, so friggin' commercial and so catchy. I've seen him several times over the years. He was one of the early artists that I brought my son to see at the Fillmore in San Francisco, and we had a great time. This album, the psychedelic imagery of pop art is so great. Now we have this, all the stuff most listeners don't need, but we also have this beautiful double album. Now, I love this in the intro here. It says, "Congratulations on purchasing or stealing this physical copy of the new Eels album. Here's some facts you couldn't possibly learn from simply streaming the album on an online platform." And he goes on talking about who worked on production, who plays on it, how it was recorded, the design, the photography, the management, the mastering, the thank yous, and so on and so forth, and the list of his entire discography. But it's a lovely, lovely package. Colored vinyl, du jour. He's pretty elaborate with their limited edition things, and I admire him for that. He's sticking with, giving sort of value. Now, these aren't necessarily cheap, but there's a lot of options you can get. Of course, the CD version comes along with it, which is great. Better than a friggin' download, in my mind. Almost like a color-formed little sticker packet. And of course, how can you buy a box set without getting at least a Ouija board of some kind? So, over-the-top packaging, of course it is. But this is what we like about vinyl packaging, about record collecting. It's definitely my package of the year, my favorite packaging of the year. Congratulations, E. He does have a couple albums just under the moniker E, solo albums before the Eels. Ooh, Freudian there. The Eels came about. Again, it's pretty much a one-man show with a lot of friends, so it's a project more than a band, but it is him. He's the visionary, and I'm a big fan of his. I could do a little mini tour of just his stuff, but it's really interesting. Next, I want to show two records that I got turned on to by my friend John, Digital Gramophone's channel. I'll put a link below to his channel. These are two great gospel records. Volumes 1 and Volume 2 came out this year. And these are from Juan D. Shipp, who put out Shipp's Divine Spiritual Records in the 1970s. It's kind of during the time when George Wallace was running for president. And in some ways, there was this whole reaction of that situation. But these are fantastic records. These are amazing gospel records. I'm a big fan of gospel, divine spirituals, 50 years later. Amazing music. Big gospel fan here. Thanks, John, for turning me on to these. Here's a little featurette, and it's about a group morphing into another group, which has happened so many times before. But I want to talk about the Blues Project. Blues Project with Andy Kohlberg, Roy Bloomfield, John Gregory, Don Kretschmar, and Richard Green from Jim Kweskin. The whole Greenwich Village, a fusion of folk, jazz, blues, organic and wonderful music, rootsy music. Put this album out, The Blues Project, Projections, they were really a part of that scene, crossing over from acoustic to electric, and then decided to disband in this form and morph into a band called Seatrain. As a result, this album initially was going to be the first Seatrain album, but because of a contractual obligation they had with Verve Records, the great folk blues jazzy East Coast outfit, this is called Plan Obsolescence. This was released as a blues project album. But then, in 1969, I remember walking into a store near San Francisco Zoo, a record store in a little sort of a special strip mall area, and seeing this cover. I don't know what it was. It's not the most amazing cover in the world, but this record intrigued me. And at the time, I did not make the connection with the Blues Project. And I brought this home, and I absolutely fell in love with this record. This is my favorite Seatrain album. This is their first album under the moniker Seatrain. A&M Records, the only album they put out on A&M Records. And it has a psychedelic rock sound to it. Very catchy. There's a little bit of a Baroque pop sensibility in some cases. It's got the violin of Richard Green. It's got the wonderful flute playing of Andy Kohlberg, and it's a magnificent album. I just love this album. I love the opening track, Seatrain, the title of their band and title of the song. The way that song ends, it's just like a sucking in sound, almost like an auto reverse, big blast of crap through your speakers, and just stops. Outward the Hills, that's an elaborate, amazing ending to an album. Fantastic record. I love this record. But like many groups in the day, when something doesn't catch on, they imploded, and they had a huge shift in membership. And they were on the West Coast by this time, Marin County, California, just north of San Francisco, and part of the scene. And that was it. So this is the UK later version. This is an Etzel reissue of it. This is the cover that came out in the United Kingdom. Slightly different, more psychedelic. This probably would have been the better cover. This is obviously more minimal style. But again, my favorite album of theirs by far. They switched into a whole different sound, and the sound is more of a country rootsy yodeling sound. And what's interesting about this record, self-titled Seatrain, they moved to Marblehead, Massachusetts. This is on Capitol Records. This is the first album George Martin produced after the Beatles, 1970s debut, Seatrain. It's got a little country flavor to it, and just like that other album, End of Side One, a little different order here, ends with that, they redo that song, Out Where the Hills. They open up with I'm Willin', a favorite song of mine written by Lowell George, and Little Feat, covered by so many artists like the Byrds and Linda Ronstadt. Love that song. If you give me weed, whites, and wine, and show me a sign, and we'll be willin'. So they got a country roots, and as much as I like the country roots organic thing, I still go back to this psychedelic feel of this album. There's a psychedelic popness here that they lost here. Now, you know, maybe because of the band, and there's a rootsy thing happening, the percolation of country rock with Poco, and obviously so many other bands around this time. Roots was becoming a bigger thing with the singer-songwriter. People were leaving that more psychedelic pop stuff, Baroque stuff home, and they were getting into more of an organic sound. And I get that. And people like this record. None of these records were huge sellers. Their second record on Capitol was this record. And this is Marblehead Messenger. Again, because of Marblehead, East Coast, Massachusetts. Another production of George Martin. And again, similar in vein, it's got the rootsy feel, and they were going through a whole different change. Peter Rowan, his two younger brothers, the Rowan brothers, had an album that was going to be a huge hit, supposedly a huge hit on Columbia Records. Never quite made it. You want to see it? You want to see it, don't you? I saw them open, I think, for Hot Tuna at Winterland. This is the Rowan brothers, the younger brother, two younger brothers of Peter Rowan. Columbia put a lot of muscle, a lot of money behind this record. It's got a folk rock sensibility, and it just didn't quite make it up. I like it, but it's not a fantastic record, but it's a grower. It's interesting. But Peter Rowan joins the band. He was in a band called Earth Opera, and he joins this band. Later on, if you follow roots music, a great yodeler, great sort of bluegrass country sound, a lot of singer-songwriter, acoustic-based, rootsy folk country albums in the 70s and in the 80s and beyond, and had a really wonderful career on his own. But this album, so the band implodes, it changes, even Peter Rowan leaves, and I think we only had, was it Andy Kohlberg left maybe by this point? And they do one album on Warner Brothers, and this is Seatrain on Warner Brothers. Again, not a great record at all. As a completist, I sort of enjoyed it. Again, Jim Roberts writing lyrics again, who had been writing lyrics from the very beginning with Seatrain. So again, just wanted to have a little showing of Seatrain. Again, that first album on A&M Records is my favorite. The country stuff is interesting. There's some great stuff on those records. The Blues Project records are wonderful as well. So that's the little excursion here on Mazzy's Mix. The Grateful Dead been putting out a series of these records. This is February 27th, February 28th, and now we finally finish with the third night. These are limited edition, 9,000 copies, a lot, but believe me, these have sold out 9,000 copies and they're already going for some bucks. But I love this series of shows, and if you know the album, the Orange Cover Live Dead that came out, they finally put out this last of the 3 record sets from March 1st, the last night of this run at the Fillmore West. Beautiful spot varnish cover and great artwork. I mean, there's nothing like a Grateful Dead concert, and of course the skull and roses is the iconic image here, the Rick Griffin artwork. So I'm glad they finally completed the set after all these years. It's been, what, 5-6 years now they've been working on these, I think. Every couple of years they put another one out. This is the final of this particular run. So if you're Deadhead, if you're into the Dead, this is, to me, one of the best series of concerts. That Fillmore 1969 3-night set, The Grateful Dead. There's nothing like a Grateful Dead concert, really. So in closing to Mazzy's Mix number 23, I want to show a book that I got because of Vinyl Richie. Vinyl Richie is on the YouTube here, on the vinyl community, link below. Love his channel. We've collaborated before. I think we're going to do Northern California versus Los Angeles, San Francisco versus Los Angeles, or just things, concerts and music, because we're close to the same age, and we want to kind of compare notes on that. Not really a versus, but this book is The Acid Archive, 2nd edition. This is about a 10, 12-year-old book, and it goes through all these great psychedelic musings and records and releases and all kinds of ephemera from the psychedelic period. Love this kind of stuff. So Richie showed this. This is edited by Patrick Lundborg. And what can I say? It's just a great period. A lot of stuff in here that I know nothing about. So that's the end of Mazzy's Mix number 23. The last day of January. I'm recording this in 2022. Mazzy loves you, and records are your best entertainment value. Or they used to be, at least. Take care.